let's bring in the governing All Progressives Congress National Secretary, National Publicity Secretary. Thank you so much, Felix Morka, for joining us. I mean, amazing words, you know, words cast in gold, if you
Absolutely.
like, from former President Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, an exclusive there, yet again with Arise News. What do you make of some of the points that he raised there, especially on the issue of 95 million people registering, 95 million Nigerians registered, only barely about 23 million actually went to the polls, and even bring it down to the point where only 8.9 million Nigerians actually voted for this incoming president that's about to be sworn in a few hours from now?
Well, first, thank you for having me this morning. You know, this thing called citizenship is serious business. Nigerians, I think, love to admire other countries. We love to talk about, you know, the countries that we consider to be, you know, up there in terms of, you know, development, and even aspire to go there. But, you know, we hardly stop to think and remember that those countries were built by citizens, by people who stayed and those who decided that they wanted more out of their country. So I think we need to begin to, you know, just especially as the former president has said, we need to begin to think as a people. And this is our own country. You can go anywhere and live in any country of the world and be comfortable. But Nigeria is our own. So, you know, something as simple as going out there to cast your vote is about the most critical way you show citizenship. You show that this is yours, your own country to build. Because that decision has enormous repercussions for how we live as a people.
I think you have a point, and but again, you should also understand that it's a two-way street here now. We're talking about a situation whereby building, you know, citizenship awareness also comes from listening to citizens when they get agitated within the confines of the laws. And again, when they also have a government that also gives them what they've been so elected to do. So, but in this case, we haven't seen quite a lot, and that is why a lot of people are expectant, asking what could be different in the coming administration on the back of its comment that it will build on President Buhari's legacies. And I'll speak how, you know, they say that, good thing that you also from the civil society, how the everyday Nigerian will say, God forbid. You want to build on what? Suffer? So now, speak to us. Build on what?
Right. I think you're raising a very important, you know, conversation, which is that of, you know, the failure of leadership.
Yes.
Versus the failure of citizenship or followership. You know, chicken and the egg. Which comes first? You see, this is a very delicate conversation, and depending on who is listening, may take whatever it is they want out of that conversation. But my own school of thought is that it's actually all about the citizens. And I think part of the reason we don't have governments who have served Nigerians the way they deserve to be served is that we don't demand enough. We grumble a lot, but we don't demand enough. Citizens elsewhere have all kinds of mechanisms, you know, by which they actually package and deliver their concerns in ways that governments, however irresponsible, you know, can ignore.
Yeah, but for citizenship, I'll let you land on that. But how do you do that when there is the weaponization of poverty, there's a weaponization of ignorance, and what have you? You know, the citizenship has been so beaten down in a way that their spirits are broken that they cannot even rise, you know, for themselves. And when they attempt to do that, they may just be, you know, pushed back or gagged or whatever, or clamped down upon.
Because what you're describing is not unique to Nigeria. This is the story of, you know, civilization. The story of social contract, where, you know, you give that agency to some people to govern, and they actually get there, they appropriate that power and actually do other things other than that which they're supposed to do, which is the well-being and the welfare of the people, to promoting and upholding those values.
Right.
Now, fact is that when you say weaponization of poverty, it can swing both ways. Other countries, people weaponize their poverty and the deprivations that they face to actually enforce their own authority over those who govern. Meaning they feel deprived and therefore organize to pressure government to do more to address those conditions. So it's not just about those who govern weaponizing poverty to suppress or sustain the oppression of their own people. It can go both ways. My argument is that Nigerians need to, in fact, weaponize their own poverty, in that positive sense, to pressure government and demand more, and actually resist even this whole idea that government can simply just gag and put people down, and then they're supposed to stay there. Look, it's a creative dialogue, between citizens and their government, and I think that countries where things work, when you look at the trajectory and the history, it is about people consistently, even against the barrage of official intimidation, oppression, ruthless assaults. Sometimes, in extreme cases, we've seen countries where people just disappear, right? All in efforts to cow citizens, but they actually continue to raise their heads and to raise their voices to demand better. And ultimately, you see that sometimes the curve begins to of oppression begins to go down. They listen more, they do more, and that's when people get inspired to get into government, actually do more for their own people. So, look, today is a wonderful day.
It is.
I am optimistic that, just as the former presidents have said, that we've come a long distance from the days when even the two, former presidents were held sway, when they held sway by the force of, the gun, not because we voted for them, the military system. But today, since 1999, we have moved a whole lot away. We may still have issues and people may be dissatisfied, which they have a right to be, because we all seek utopia. We seek perfection as human beings. We want it better.
So why is today
and they have a right to
today?
do that.
What
Yes.
really should Nigerians be celebrating? Because look, some are already giving themselves certificates of survivor. I mean,
right.
should Nigerians be celebrating the fact that another 8 years has come to a screeching end and going into a new administration that holds better promise, that holds, greater hope for them? Really, what really should the celebration today, May 29, be about?
Look, the celebration should be really about the opportunity that we're here. That we're here as a people. The government that is outgoing over the last 8 years has done, quite frankly, I know people have all kinds of standards by which they measure success of governments. Yeah. But actually, I think that this government that's outgoing has done enormously and has brought us quite away from where we used to be. And so when people say build on the legacy of this administration, it's not in the literal sense. Because government is a continuum. Whether you like it or not, whether a government succeeds or doesn't succeed, a new government will come, and a new government will invariably build on whatever the previous governments have done. What President Muhammadu Buhari has done is based on the legacies of. Is
it to build on it or to actually upturn and unravel whatever foundations?
No, you don't necessarily unravel. I mean. No, you see, building on does not mean you build on you try to improve the weaknesses of the government. You try to improve it, and where they've done well, you actually also try to improve. So it's both on the negatives and on the positives. Every government anywhere in the world has negatives and positives. So it's about really qualitatively moving, that needle from point A to point B, hopefully in the right direction.
Let's come to some specifics now, and perhaps education, health, and a number. And earlier on, I spoke with Adeswa, and we're talking about the Aso Rock Clinic. But again, the question will be: are we going to have a president who will travel every time, perhaps to go
for healthcare,
to go fix his teeth when the country has some teething health problems?
Well, I think we have an incoming government led by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has had, I think, sufficient time to think about the whole essence and purpose of government. He's been in that corridor for a very long time. And as he himself says, he's had this vision and aspiration to, come in to lend a hand as, president to move us in that direction that we need to go. So, I am supremely confident that, quite frankly, in our recent history, I don't know of any president who is coming to the job with the kind of energy and the kind of, political will that he has amassed for himself over these many years. Because see, government is not just about the system, this whole amorphous system that we have of government. It's about the will of also of the individuals who are involved. If you come into office and you're determined to get something done, however the obstacles may be, ultimately, your will takes you, a step closer than those who want to set you back. And I think that we're going to see, Nigerians are in for a pleasant surprise to see the speed with which this president is going to hit the ground running. I've been around him, I've listened to him speak, and every time I, hear him speak in a free, not in public necessarily, but in that wholly formal environment, you hear a determined soul, somebody who really, however the language he comes with, is keen to hit the ground.
What do you think happened? Because I met someone who says, well, since after the campaign, the gaffe that they saw once, the balablu, and said every time he speaks, he's apprehensive, thinking that something was going to go amiss. But since then, nothing. And he's been asking, he said to me, I don't know what happened. Was that a campaign gimmick, or was that deliberately done?
No, it wasn't deliberately done. Alede, you're a young man in comparison to the president-elect. If you had to go through just, I don't want to say a third, just a fraction of the pressure and the schedule, the sleepless nights, waking up in the morning and having hundreds of people, thousands of people around you consistently at that time, and going out to campaign with very little sleep. And this guy does not sleep much, didn't sleep much at that time. Listen, you will also be liable.
You'll be balablu
or vulnerable to any of those things we've discussed and maybe even laughed about. But look, make no mistake, he's had time to rest. Like a human being, he's rested a little bit. I know the job ahead is tough, but being president is actually different.
Not patronizing, but he really looks rested. So
yes,
that's what I'm asking.
No, he's rested.
What happened?
But that's in comparison to the time of the campaign when he didn't have any kind of time to rest. Some of us who were not the campaigner, we didn't rest a whole lot. And even me, I know I had my own fair share of gaffes.
You look rested.
You look well. It looks like all of you guys went on some kind of holiday. But I mean, that might actually just be a case for the need for younger people to get to the highest, or even aspire, for the highest echelon of government. But that's an argument for another day. Let's talk about the APC. I mean, is with the same party that's handing over to another president under the same administration. And I'm wondering, in the course of all the campaigns before the elections and even till date, we haven't really heard much about the APC manifesto, the APC being in the driver's seat of deciding what kind of government, what complexion the administration should have. I mean, in those days, the first, second, third republic and all of that, it was a political party that designed, the manifesto and what Nigerians, should expect. Is there a convergence? And where is that convergence between what the APC manifesto is, if there is one, and what President-elect Bola Tinubu, has in his manifesto, in a way that they will marry and deliver very quickly on the dividends of democracy for Nigerians?
Yes, no, you have a point, and that is that, don't forget, in 2015, the party unveiled its manifesto. A manifesto is really an ideological statement, a statement of objectives and aspirations of what the party would like to see accomplished, on its platform. And every elected official who comes through, whether for the House of Assembly, National Assembly, or governor, or even not the president, builds upon that manifesto. In our case, our manifesto is, we consider it to be, a highly progressive, inclusive manifesto. So what you've seen is that, our president-elect today, who will be inaugurated today, simply, fashioned his vision upon the manifesto of the party. So there's really no clear-cut difference between the party's manifesto and the manifesto that he has offered as part of this.
I asked that because of the issue of restructuring, for example. That was a word that was on the front burner of the conversation before 2015.
Yes.
2015 came 8 years after, no restructuring. In the course of Tinubu's campaigning, we heard about restructuring, that he will restructure and all of that. Is that likely to happen?
Well, what's
should Nigerians expect that? Because many have said, look, if we don't restructure Nigeria, it doesn't matter how lofty the dreams of the incoming administration is. They may just be dead on arrival because Nigeria is too big, to be governed from the center.
But what's restructuring, Rosie? What does it really mean when we say restructuring?
Tell me.
This outgoing government has done a lot of restructuring. I mean, a lot of the effort and the decisions and legal constitutional changes that have been made, for example, to the status of local governments in this country, is all part of that process. The whole idea to make local governments more autonomous and less vulnerable to this manipulative efforts of leaders, whether they're governors or other people, is all part of that. And it's a process, it's not an activity. Restructuring is not something you enact and say we're done. No, it's a process, and part of that process
it's an organic restructuring that you're talking about.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It's a continuum. But the electoral reforms we've had, the efforts to make the judicial arm more independent, the local governments more autonomous, it's all part of that. And in the constitutional, proposals which are still making their way through approval, it's there. But yes, I think that when people say restructuring, they expect, let's consider, this whole idea of, whether it's resource control or, regional, greater regional autonomy and all that. But fundamentally, my view is that unless we get it right, the earlier conversation we're having, this relationship between the people and the agents who govern, if we don't get it right, if you like, take Delta State, take Akwa Ibom, and take the entire South, put them back in one region with a government, some of the things that actually, haunt Nigerians, what Nigerians dislike intensely, whether it's corruption, whether it's just lack of faithfulness to the people, as long as the operators are the same and there's no consequence for bad behavior,
all right,
nothing will change much. So, it's not about just, having this cosmetic system, but I believe in organic, due process kind of restructuring that I think is already underway.
All right,
even
Felix,
under this outgoing administration.
Felix Morka, I would like to thank you for your time as always, and I do hope Nigerians share in that optimism. Many thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.